Hey everybody, it's me, the Einsterin Wall Street, here on the balcony of the New York Stock Exchange. I bring you fashion, fun, finance. I bring you influencers. I bring you humanistic stories, people who are trying to change other people's lives in a positive way. There's a lot of stuff out here that's not that important, right? People get all wrapped up, especially in the world of social media and stuff, where the impact that they're having on society and other people is just, look, I was brought up with, it's not a matter of how many cash and prizes you die with. It's a matter of how many lives you impact in a positive way while you're here. That's the journey. That's the mission. That's the whole thing. It's a matter of create, motivate, and inspire betterness. I'm making up a new word here. Betterness in other people. So today I've got somebody special here. Check this out. What's up with women and money? Alison Kosik, my dear friend.
Oh my God, we've known each other for how long? It's Kosik.
Kosik, it's okay.
Kosik.
Well, what's my last name?
Tuchman, but
Okay,
you're
that's true.
Einstein, always
Okay.
Einstein to me.
Okay, so anyway, Alison Kosik has been a reporter here on the floor, one of the great financial reporters on the floor of the stock exchange for how many years?
Oh, more than 15.
More than 15 years, and we've been friends and colleagues for all that time. And recently she's decided to depart from these hallowed halls where she really was a huge asset to us in so many ways, and to me as a friend and somebody who I looked up to in this world. Because for me, look, for the longest time, I was just a broker on the floor. I did a bunch of things, but I really didn't know what I was doing in the financial reporting space, and Alison has been extraordinary. So she's done something really spectacular and new. She's here to tell her story, right? Writing a book is a powerful thing, okay? You know, we were having a chat the other day. We were trying to figure out why people do it and what is the motivation behind it and what do they want to get out of it and how do they want to empower and motivate and inspire other people to be their best selves. So the book is called What's Up with Women and Money? How to do all the financial stuff you've been avoiding. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, so good to see you again.
Great to have you here. So anyway, let's talk about it. We're here in 2025. We're about a month into the new administration. We're about 2 months into 2025. When it comes to finance, the world is like, you know, look, we're in a world that's really pretty, it's a roller coaster, right? I mean, so much going on in the world, in the new administration as far as finance and whatnot. But from a personal point of view, I think people think about this. I'm going to go back to let's go back to COVID, right? Because I really think COVID was a pivotal time. It was where sort of the world crossed over the line, right? Our lives changed forever and ever. Well, how we relate to other people, how we relate to social media, how we relate to this crazy thing that we have, which we're so tied to, and how we relate to our finances and relationships. It's all about relationships, right? So Alison's written a book, okay? It's all about women and money. So, welcome to the New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you.
It's
I love
great.
that introduction.
Well, I'm really happy to have you. So, look, it's important for me to let her tell her story. Let's go back for a minute. Talk to me about Alison at the age of 15.
At the age of 15?
At the age of 15.
Meaning what?
Like, who was Alison Kosik at the age of 15?
I was super driven. I was in a situation. You want me to talk about this really?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Ooh,
You know what? Do we want to go there yet? Okay, you know what? Let's
wait a
stop for a
minute.
minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because look, we're going to get heavy, down and dirty there for a minute, but we're not ready to get there first. Okay, so she's written a book, right? And she's been on a journey, and she's had success and she's had failures. We know we learn a lot more from our failures than success, and so I think that's where this book came out of, right? Look, the journey has not been easy for her. She was married, she was divorced, she has a couple of kids, and her upbringing was was fraught with a lot of anxiety and stress and pain and resentment and a lot of other things. So we'll delve into that in a second.
Ooh,
yeah, I know it's
getting
kind of
hot in here, Einstein.
It's getting hot in here. So take off all your clothes. Sorry. All right, this is a PC show.
Yes,
anyway,
it is.
so I've actually never reviewed a book before. I actually haven't read a book since I was 8 years old, right? I can't read.
Really?
I don't read. My brain is sort of a spectrum-y brain, so I think the last book I read was The Cat in the Hat.
Oh.
Until I
That's a
read
good
some
book,
of your
though.
book.
Well, thank
right?
you.
And I just want to
What
kind of flip
strikes you?
through it.
What pops out?
So let's talk about it for a minute. Look, let's talk about women. Let's get serious about women. the floor of the stock exchange, historically a place, and finance in general, right? The finance, hedge fund industry, investment trading, all that has not really involved women at all in this industry. We go back to Muriel Siebert, the first woman ever to own a seat on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, okay? Women in finance, brokers here on the floor of the stock exchange. It wasn't until some point in the late 90s that actually there was a situation, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, around Smith Barney having to add 10% of their employment base to become women in finance. It's a long story, go read up on it, it's a very funny story, but the judge made a decision to settle the case against Smith Barney that they had to add 10% of all the women, 10% of all their employees had to be women in the finance space. And that really broke the barriers, at least in this industry here. And at one point, we had over 100 women brokers on the floor. Out of 1,366 brokers, women started to come to the floor. Look, this is a bit of a men's club, right? It's always been that way for 100 plus years. And women were not that they were not accepted here, but it was just not where women came to hang out. And finance and business has historically not been a place where women were necessarily accepted or where they went, right? And so that has changed. It's changed a lot, but it is not even close to where it needs to be. And I think that's one of the reasons. There are multiple reasons why Alison wrote this book. A lot of it is a personal journey that she went through and where that took her relationship to money. It's also a personal journey as far as her and her finances and being in a broken marriage and how that related to her going on and having to be her own self and how that related to money, her relationship to money. Think about it. Everybody has a pretty, short of you being a billionaire, and I'm sure billionaires probably have the same problem too, everybody has a bit of a contentious relationship to money. Yeah. And women have gotten surely the short end of the stick in every respect. And you would think in 2025 we'd be a lot friggin' further on than we are as far as women being accepted in finance, in business, women making as much as men in finance, in business, and just, women standing side to side. We stand side by side with women in so many situations that there is absolutely should not be in any case any differentiation.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. However, there is, and that's the friggin' reality, right? And look, and we can play victim, which she is not, and so that's one of the reasons she wrote the book, because it's not about poor me, poor me. It's not what this is all about. It's about making a stand and trying to change it. And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And so that's what this is all about. So she's come out of a broken marriage where her husband, and this is probably very typical to most couples, where the husband and wife have their finances. So I know with my wife, our finances we kept them separate, and I don't really know why, but it was just, money's a funny thing, and people do funny stuff around money. And so, and when marriages split up, money becomes a point of contention. And so while one of the people in the marriage may be the one who's in charge of the money and the insurance and the mortgages and all that kind of stuff, that when the marriage splits up, what happens, right? If I'm suddenly left in the middle of an ocean and I don't know how to swim, I'm in trouble. And obviously my partner, who is now no longer my partner, is not going to be the sweetest person in the world to try and help me out of this situation. So you're really, this is an educational book. It's a really go-to book for women who have gone through similar challenges as you. So tell me about this. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, so if you look at women in earlier generations, if you compare us now to earlier generations, today women are more educated. We are carving out our careers in our very hectic lives, and we're running companies. But what I found through this book, through research and dozens of interviews with women, is that a lot of women across the economic spectrum, especially those who are highly successful, are either not fully involved with managing their finances,
right,
are pawning it off to their husbands, or are avoiding it altogether. And this is a relationship with money that is something that has been going on that has not really been acknowledged. And if you want to have a case in point, one of the women I interviewed in this book, a woman in the venture capital space, 53 years old, told me during our interview, she characterized money like this. She says, money terrifies me. I'm overwhelmed about where to start. I'm not good at it. Keep in mind, this is a woman who is in charge of raising money, capital for companies, but she had yet to, when I talked to her, she was 53 years old, had yet to have one retirement account, didn't know how to budget, and didn't know one thing about personal finance. This woman was sobbing to me on the phone during this interview. I felt horrible for her. But she is like many other women, and we don't talk about this because there's a lot of embarrassment, there's a lot of shame in it, and we're not willing to admit it because for fear of looking unintelligent. And so I'm saying, let's go ahead and change the conversation about money. For many women, the conversation about money has been shrouded in mystery, misconception, misunderstanding, and oftentimes fear. So I say, let's change the conversation. Let's talk about, let's encourage women to talk about what they don't know. Let's encourage women to ask questions without fear of being judged, so that way they can get control of their finances and really build a strong financial future.
Boom! Drop the mic on that one. Holy cow. And you said you don't know how to do a good interview. That was amazing. No, so look, so we're going to deviate. This is not about a story about equal pay. This is a story about what do you do and your relationship to money. It is scary. Everybody has that relationship to money. And so whether you're alone or you're in a relationship, what you do with it, these are the questions. And look, there's no stupid, the only stupid question is the question you don't ask. But there is fear and there's shame and anxiety and all that around money.
When women have these really great jobs, that they're badass at their jobs, but at home, personal finance wise, they're not in charge, they don't have visibility. It's not something women readily admit because it's almost like a weakness and it ruins the persona that we put out. But in the end, by us staying silent, we build the world of finance, meaning investing or taking control of our insurance or, whether or not we want to refinance.
All the brass tack stuff, the small stuff.
We stay silent, so we're not learning anything. And just like with anything intimidating, we build it up to be this complicated thing. But once we get involved with each little transaction, we build our confidence. So yes, there are tips and tools in this book for finance, but it goes beyond the finance. It's building self-confidence in order to take action to take those steps in our financial world.
You know what? I love it. That's you said it is so beautifully. It's so true. And think about it. Look, you've been a financial reporter for decades, and you are still somebody who is struggling with all this stuff. There are people in business, as you described, who are in the business. Look, and there's another part of it because, look, when you step out, imagine yourself a woman and you're stepping out and you want equal representation and you want to be treated the same, yet there's this big part of you that is lacking, is empty when it comes to that knowledge. And so you're sort of, there's that paradox, like, well, you should know that already. You know what? There's nothing you should know. It's a matter of the reality is that most women, look, I'm not going to make a judgment, but there are a lot of women who are in the same situation of you, who are in business, who are not in business, who are in families, who are in marriages, who are in broken marriages, who absolutely have no idea how to do the small stuff, the big stuff, credit score, mortgages, 401ks, all that stuff. And you've been in this industry, you know all that stuff, and still you struggled with it.
Well, I mean, being here at the New York Stock Exchange when I was at CNN reporting on the markets and the market moves, that's very different from handling your personal finances because, by the time I realized my marriage was going bad, there is something different with, handling your own money. What if I make a mistake? What if I lose all my money? My kids were under 10 years old. I don't know the first thing. My husband at the time, he took control of the investing because I let him. It's not like he didn't want me to get involved. I was busy. We have busy lives. I was just like, I trusted him. I said, you do it. It's good. Here's the problem. When the marriage goes bad and you're not involved in the investing and the car buying and the insurance and how much life insurance do we have and what are the passwords, I didn't know anything. And this is dangerous because I wound up staying in a bad marriage for years longer than I should have.
Because of your fear of leaving. Because of that.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's super powerful because, look, at the end of the day, as we said, it's all about relationships, and life is as challenging as it can be in these times more than ever. And we know that more than 50% of marriages do fail, right? And I would imagine a lot of it is around money. And surely once the marriage fails, I would imagine that money is probably, for the most part, something that's taken care of by the men in the world. And when things go bad, then you're left sitting out there in the middle of the ocean with no way to learn how to swim. And so I would imagine that there are so many people, so many women who can relate to this, who can identify with this story in any number of ways. So then let's get down and dirty for a minute. Let's talk about it. So one of the reasons that we have this relationship with money, okay, and look, my parents were immigrants. They came here. They had nothing. My father's a doctor. My mother worked for my father. You know, they were successful. They did not have a lot of money, and you know, and if I look at it now, it turns out that my mother actually was the one who was in charge of all the money in our house. Not always necessarily the case. But there's a thing called financial insecurity, right? In a relationship, people have, money is a power trip, right? Money can be a way of holding power over the other person, right? So let's go back to you. You mentioned it in your story. There is a chapter in the story, Alison talks about it, that her father suffered from, he had the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction. And as someone who suffers with that disease, one of the things around that disease is the fact that there's no money enough to support one's addiction, right? Addiction is a fascinating thing. You know, look, very often on this show, we talk about mental health, mental illness. We talk about addiction. We talk about that journey and how difficult it is. And everyone needs to understand that people who are suffering from addiction and alcoholism are not bad people. They are sick people. It is a disease and it needs to be treated that way. But along the way, if you are the child of an addict and an alcoholic, you end up suffering from that. It's a power trip. So let's talk about it. Describe you. You've told it to me, and I know it's going to make us both cry. But you know, it's a powerful thing. Think about you growing up. Talk to me your relationship with your dad.
Today I'm not going to cry.
Okay.
Today we're going to talk about this story. Today I'm telling myself I won't cry.
Okay.
So just a clarification, my dad was a drug addict, not an alcoholic, but
okay.
I would imagine it's the same kind of
Similar.
thing. I grew up in a drug addicted household. He was addicted to, from the drugs I knew, you know, cocaine, Quaaludes, and those were the drugs I knew about. Right. The funny story I like to tell is I was 8 years old, and this would happen almost every morning. I would be eating my breakfast cereal at the table, and he would be rolling his joints. So by the time I was 8 years old, because back then I guess, I don't smoke, but I guess back then
you had to roll your own joints.
You had to roll and separate the seeds from the.
Correct.
So I would watch him.
I don't know. A birdie told me, but yes, that's the case.
And he would roll them up, and then he would line them up. I'm assuming he would line them up for the day. And so when I was 8 years old, I knew how to roll a joint.
So you were having Lucky Charms and weed. Okay,
yep.
good.
And then it got deeper because once the coke started, it really got bad in my house. It was chaotic, and of course my dad was always angry. He was unpredictable. It was like emotional terrorism. He told me I wouldn't amount to anything, called me fat, said horrible things to me. It was a very chaotic household. I never knew what dad I was going to get. He was extremely unpredictable to the point where I wouldn't even invite friends over because I wouldn't know which dad would be there. So I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, and so I talked with a financial psychologist about this when I wrote the book, and I said, does my lack of confidence growing up have anything to do with my lack of confidence in the way I handle my money? And he said, absolutely, that the kind of confidence that was cut off, that you went through, or confidence-crushing childhood that you went through, absolutely cut me off at the knees with everything in my life. So yes, I am lacking confidence in basically everything in my life, so it's a struggle every day, but that's fine. But as far as the finances go, my upbringing had everything to do with my lack of confidence, because I think everybody has a money story, and that is my money story, and it is a struggle every day.
So I'm so happy you shared that, because I guarantee you there are thousands of people who will identify that. Anybody out there, and specifically women, who had a father who was an addict, absolutely know, and I've done a lot of research about addiction, that their money is a major issue in the family. Somebody who is an addict, well, anything that gets in between and their addiction will just go by the wayside. It can be your family, it can be your rent, it can be your family, the people you love. It doesn't really matter. And so financial insecurity is a big part of that. And that's your journey, that's your story. And what that obviously did was, as you said, it cut you off at the knees. So if that's your foundation of your relationship to money, then that sets the stage for what went on to be a failed marriage on your own, and also your relationship to money, not wanting to touch it, not wanting to be involved in it, being scared of it, not wanting to not be in control of it. It's a control issue. As is addiction, so is the money thing with you. And I guarantee you there are thousands, as we know, right? There are millions and millions of addicts throughout the world. Many of them have daughters, and I guarantee you that there are going to be tons of people who can identify with that. So this is a specific tale, right? I need people who identify with this story to understand that Alison's mission and her motivation is a sincere one. It comes out of pain, it comes out of resentment, but it also comes out of a necessity for her to tell her story, to find people who can identify with that story, and to get beyond this. Because you would think at this point in time in 2025 that women be in a different place, that whole relationship to money and the obstacles and the barriers and the bumps in the road and pebbles in your shoe around money would be a little easier to transcend, but they're not. Right, we are. The more we advance in so many ways, the more we're going back to ground zero. And because at the end of the day, we're a function of who we grew up with and grew up as. Right, our relationships to people and to money, and that's where we leave ourselves today. Right, so. The book is powerful, and it's funny because it's like, is it a financial instrument book for dummies? No, but it will surely give you the answers to lots of questions. Let's go over it. I mean, I can just sort of skim through it here. Get a home inspection, how get your home appraised, closing day, finalizing your mortgage, use of a secured credit card, fixing your credit rating, your credit report. There you go. Membership and apps, cell phones, whatever budget you choose. I mean, these are sort of super basic things. How do I set up an IRA? These are things that, look, I'm in finance. I don't know most of these things, and look, unfortunately, I was in a wonderful marriage. My wife passed away, and she was the one who was in charge of the money, even though this is my business. But, there are things that we sort of, whether we pawn them off or we rely on other people to take care of it, at the end of the day, we're living in this super specialized world where that's why I'm a team player. That's why I have Mateo who does my videos. I have different people to do things because I think we're in this hyper specialized world where everybody's really good. Look, it's like, one of my big premises is find something you love to do, get really good at it, and just do it, right? And so, there are things around money that I'm really bad at, right? My son, just to get particular, he wanted to move into a new apartment a couple days ago, and we were sitting down, the three of us, with my daughter, and we're trying to figure out how much rent he can afford to pay. And he and I are very similar. It's like, we'll come up with it. Money's not a factor. And at the end of the day, budgeting is a huge thing. What can you afford? Putting it down on paper. I hate doing that.
It sounds so basic, but it's so necessary, especially if you're doing something like that. If you're figuring out
and
how
I
much
don't
you can
like.
afford.
I kind of make believe it's going to be okay. And at the end of the day, whether it's your story, whether it's my story, or anybody out there's story, that the stress and resentment and relationship around that can really be debilitating, right? And it can put you in situations that will affect your next relationship and all those things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting how you said that it's all about control, and I'm going to bring that back to even just investing. I think with women, I think women think that they have to be experts in investing before they dive in, and it's more important to be in the market and to get money in there so you have the time and you have the compounding effect than to have it 100% figured out. Right. And that's what I've learned as far as investing goes. It was one of the first things I had to do out of my marriage, that and actually buy a car, which there's a car buying chapter in there too.
There's a car buying chapter in there, so let's talk about also that. So, it's it just, look, money is really a very funny thing, and our relationship to it, and if you just look, everybody has their own relationship to it, and it has nothing to do with how much you have or not. But at the end of the day, these are such important things. And so, look, there's so much in this book, and I want people who are struggling to wonder. Look, think about this. So I'm on the board of a company called Alinea Invest. It's an app for first-time women investors. Even in this age and year we're in today, we're breaking new ground on women investing in the stock market, right? Women in business, women running hedge funds, women, right? We're getting there, we're getting closer, but we're nowhere near where we need to be, right? As far as how comfortable we are about asking for help. Big no-no there, right? But we don't do it comfortably, right? And trying to be our best self as far as that goes, and learning about investing, and that's why, I mean, this company is fascinating because, look, the stock market is an amazing thing, and even though we think that there are those experts out there who know better than everybody else, at the end of the day, look, you're only as good as your last trade. There are a lot of experts out there. Everybody thinks that they traded for a year and they're suddenly experts. I've been trading for 137 years. I went to high school with Alexander Hamilton.
Amazing,
right?
to be this old. Yeah,
right. So, I was at George's inauguration. Alexander's buried across the street. He didn't make it. But anyway, so I'm so happy that you came and hung out with us. I really want everybody to go check this out, right? So what's up with women and money, right? We all love women. We all love money. We got to get down and dirty on the rest of this stuff. And I really wish you the best with this book.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Goodbye.
Thank you.
And that's all I got to say about that.